Morning everybody, how are y'all doing today? I'm doing great, but the COD movement gods who tried to invade Battlefield during the beta are not doing great. Because in case you somehow haven't heard, you probably have if you've been keeping up with Battlefield stuff, but DICE announced that they would be nerfing the movement in Battlefield 6 to combat the exploits that people were doing, where basically people would be hopping around like they were doing Surf in CSGO, just being able to move way faster than they should be while bunny hopping constantly. It was bad. And this was heavily abused in the beta, and because, you know, DICE actually knows what they're doing this time around, they're nerfing it so that you shouldn't be able to movement exploit anymore, because Battlefield is supposed to be pretty grounded. This is not Call of Duty or Fortnite. So, in fact, you know what? Let's go ahead and read off exactly what they said about the movement. Movement mechanics have been adjusted to create a more balanced and traditional Battlefield experience. Momentum, especially horizontal speed, carried from a slide into a jump has been reduced. There is now a greater penalty for consecutive jumps, which lowers jump height when jumps are spammed. Firing while jumping or sliding will result in increased inaccuracy. These changes are designed to make the sliding and jumping more situational, so they are no longer ideal options for engaging in gunfights, and will contribute to a gameplay pace that rewards skillful movement without becoming too fast or unpredictable. Which, this sounds very reasonable to me. They don't want you to just be able to build up infinite momentum like you're backwards long jumping in Mario 64. And so, like they said, all they did was give you a greater penalty if you spam jumps, and the speed from a slide to a jump doesn't carry quite as much. That sounds very reasonable for a game that's trying to have a realistic, grounded war experience. And of course, as expected, this triggered the movement gods out there, who wanted to just fly around the map and farm kills from people who couldn't even shoot at them. And it especially upset this one guy in particular on Twitter, who had a full-on crash out over the situation. So today I just want to look over his initial post and then a lot of comments roasting him and his terrible responses to them. Now, I think it is important to note before we get into this dude actually is decently into Battlefield. I went to his YouTube channel. He's been uploading Battlefield content for the last 7 years, and he has been all over the Battlefield 6 news for the last 3 months or so, which honestly, the fact that that's true almost makes everything we're about to see even worse, and you'll see why. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at what he had to say about this movement update. And right there, the gameplay becomes significantly worse. There was nothing wrong with the way the movement was in the beta, and some areas were arguably too penalized already. I have no idea why they insist on ruining the feel of moving around. Nothing was OP or spammy. Brother, did you actually read the thing that you posted alongside what you just said right there? They made it so that you can't spam jumps as much, and they made it so that you won't have as much momentum carried when you slide and then jump. How is this going to make the gameplay significantly worse? You're not even really meant to slide jump that much. This isn't Call of Duty. You should know this as a Battlefield guy. I remember when I was playing the beta, all I did, and all anybody who I ever saw play the game did, was just run around, maybe slide or dive into cover, but I wasn't out there trying to slide cancel my way to victory or anything like that. And you say that nothing was OP or spammy. I'm just gonna play this footage in the background right here. Are you honestly trying to tell me that this right here is not OP or spammy? Look me dead in the eyes and say that with a straight face. But anyway, it gets worse because he follows that up by saying, anyone that agrees with these changes is utterly clueless, don't care. I guarantee you this is bad for the game. It will feel absolutely horrible. And for what? To satisfy Reddit? People that don't use any movement anyways? Again, I promise you these are horrific changes. No, not just to satisfy Reddit, to satisfy the overwhelming majority of the community who finally got their hands on a good Battlefield game after how long? And they don't want it to be ruined by COD sweats abusing movement mechanics. This is not bad for the game. This is bad for your ability to go out there and get clips for your YouTube channel. I mean, God, at least FaZe Swag had the decency to admit that he was just going for clips. You're out here trying to act like this is going to be bad for everybody, when in fact it's just going to stop a bunch of sweaty assholes from ruining the game. But yeah, those were his 2 initial tweets on it, and now I want to look at some people responding to him, and then his attempts at a response to them. Alrighty, first off, you are absolutely overreacting to this. It's not like sprint speed or something was slowed down. They just nerfed jump shots, which IMO was warranted, as bunny hopping and sliding out of corners simply doesn't belong in Battlefield in the state that it was. And then Enders replies, jump shots were already worthless. Bunny hopping was caused by a momentum bug that is getting patched. Sliding wasn't OP in the slightest and was extremely situational. Okay, let's get something very clear. Sliding by itself was not the problem, although I do agree with the decision to make guns less accurate while sliding. The issue was the sliding combined with the jump you would do afterwards, which led to some insane movement. Remember all those clips last week of people sprinting and then slide jumping out of a window and getting a massive momentum boost? That's the issue. It's not sliding by itself, it's everything combined, which is exactly what they're nerfing. They are specifically making sure that when you slide and then jump, your momentum doesn't carry as much. So what is the problem here? I'm completely with Synth Potato on this one, because if they had nerfed sprinting speed, then sure, that would be a problem. But all they did was nerf unintentional movement exploits. Like, I fail to see what the problem is. Alrighty, next up. Tell us you haven't played previous Battlefields without telling us you haven't played them. Played them more than you, lol. If that's the case, you'd be happy for the change. This is Battlefield, not COD, bro. Sorry a team-based game with vehicles is too hard for your standard boots-on-the-ground backpack mentality. Well, the disconnect here is you don't realize what was possible in older Battlefield titles. And see, this is the thing, because like I said before, this dude actually has played quite a bit of Battlefield over the last several years. And that's what makes this arguably worse. The fact that he has played so much Battlefield and he is still this against such a harmless change to stop people from sweating like crazy with the movement really makes you seem like one of those COD players who's just mad that he has to adapt to a different game. Also, yes, while there were some movement exploits you could do in older Battlefields, like say Air Strafe, for example, one, that doesn't mean that those things should be in this game, and two, this game has way worse movement exploits than those games. So yes, despite the fact that you have played the older Battlefield games, you really don't come across like you have. Alright, what do we have next? So this guy responds saying, I'm assuming complainers because of stuff like this, which by the way wasn't even effective to begin with. I really don't agree with this methodology without increasing movement in another aspect. And then Enders replies, this was unbelievably ineffective and will result in death 99% of the time, which is why these are clips in the first place. Surviving was literally clip worthy. And then somebody else replies and says, so if it's ineffective, then why are you upset they're taking it out? You keep flip-flopping, Lamau. And then the dude replies and says, I'm saying it's not good enough to nerf. Damn, this guy, Jorkin Von Strangle, that's a fantastic name, by the way. That is an excellent point. If it's so ineffective, then why are you so mad that they're getting rid of it? Like, what's the problem with them removing it if it just killed you anyway? Hear me out. Even if it resulted in your death most of the time, having something like that in the game is still incredibly annoying and distracting. And evidently, based on the fact that DICE is removing them, they don't want them in there. I'm really struggling to see the problem here. So it's completely ineffective, yet here you are extremely upset that it's getting removed. If it wasn't effective, what's the problem? And then the first guy who quote tweeted that #1 movement clip, asking them to increase movement in another aspect. No! What other aspect of the movement needs to be faster? This isn't one of those trade-offer memes where you get something in return for something else being nerfed. The thing that got nerfed wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. What, do you want EA to come over to your house and hand you a cookie? You're not owed compensation because they took out an exploit that you enjoyed doing. I swear to God, this is starting to borderline on these people being pretentious, acting like they're owed something because the movement got nerfed. Alrighty, next up. FPS content creators and streamers have ruined FPS games, which I agree with. Really, because we're doing a horrible job at ruining Battlefield 6 right now. And then the original guy replies, and yet you keep crying over changes the majority of players want. Sorry it won't be easy for you to drop 90 bombs. The replies to this post have been restoring my faith in humanity humanity, honestly. It's good to see that we still have people with common sense out there. Yes, streamers have unironically been contributing to the downfall of shooter games. Ever notice how most shooter games that end up becoming bad at some point end up that way because they tried to cater too hard to the streamer and like competitive esports crowd, and they forgot that they're making a video game for casual fun? It should be obvious by now. FPS devs, please don't cater to streamers in the 1%. Listen to what the majority of people have to say, because that majority is going to keep your game alive. Also, I'm glad that at least this guy had the decency to admit that he was doing a bad job of ruining Battlefield 6. Like, yeah, you are doing a terrible job at it. They're not listening to you, and that's a good thing. Stay mad about it. And guess what? I guarantee if they hadn't made an announcement about this, the only people who would have even noticed these changes would have been people like yourself who were exploiting the movement. Alrighty, one more reply thread, and this honestly is the worst one in my opinion. This really just shows how arrogant this dude is. So this guy responds to him and says, haha, the sweaty 1% is mad while the 99% of the rest of the community is happy. And then he replies, the 99% have no idea what they are talking about. And then somebody else replies and says, without the 99% there isn't a game. And then Enders replies, without good gameplay there isn't a game either. And then somebody else responds and says, if 99% of the player base is against it, then it's not a good mechanism. And then Enders just replies and says, not true. This is like pirate software levels of arrogance we're seeing right here. Oh, well, the 99% of the Battlefield fans who are just casual and aren't sweatlords or streamers, those people don't know what they're talking about. Their opinions shouldn't be heard. As the YouTuber and streamer, my opinion matters more, and I know what I'm talking about. Like, dude, actually just shut the hell up. I think the 99% of Battlefield fans who have been with the game for decades, who don't want broken movement mechanics in the game, know what they're talking about more than you do. And to suggest that getting rid of movement exploits is going to mean that there won't be good gameplay is absolutely false. The good gameplay in this game came from the fact that the shooting feels great. Squad play is fun and rewarding. Even without the movement exploits, it still feels good to run around and play the game and capture objectives and whatnot. If you really think a movement exploit is the only thing that makes this game's gameplay good, then please just leave, honestly. This is straight up embarrassing for you, dude. Saying that 99% of the player base doesn't know what they're talking about is just absolutely insane. But yeah, guys, with all that being said, that is all I've got for this video. I think what we've witnessed today is what happens when you let your ego and pride take over logic. These broken movement mechanics have no place in Battlefield. If you want them, go play Call of Duty. And don't act like your opinion is more valid than 99% of the player base just because you have a YouTube channel. You look like a jackass. So with all that being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like the video if you liked it, dislike if you didn't like it, subscribe if you want to see more. Join us every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on the gaming channel for gaming streams, and I will catch you all next time.